Servus and hello, Matthias here, and this is another very special episode of Singletrack. This week, I'm finding a moment to breathe between film festival shows in Olympia and Seattle, and I get to sit down and chat with previous guest and good friend of community trail running Substack fame, Adam Lee. He's our host of the Trail Running Film Festival at the Rio Theatre in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. But before we dive into the conversation with Adam, I got to share with you that we finally got our permits, and I'm happy to share that Beast of Big Creek is a go again. Yes, our amazing mountain race is back at its regular date on first Saturday in August. Come join us and breathe the mountain air above Lake Cushman along the Hood Canal in the Olympics. RockCandyRunning.com has all the info. Register and ultra sign up. We'll have limited camping available too, so sign up early and come race with us. All right, and now let's hear from Adam. So glad to have you back on Singletrack. You are calling in from beautiful, really cold, wintry, crazy weather, Vancouver, British Columbia. How are you?
Matthias, thank you for having me on again. I'm doing good despite the cold and the snow, but I shouldn't complain because other places have it much worse, I suppose.
Well, we shouldn't complain now that we actually hit the record button, because I've just been complaining. No, not complaining for the last 20 minutes before we even hit record. Part of why I have you on and part of why I'm complaining, still not complaining, what was it? Therapy session. Part of why I needed a therapy session is because you are our host in Vancouver for the Trail Running Film Festival, and we've been talking about this entire tour since day one. You were one of the first people who said, yes, let's do this. So I've been aware of how, like, this whole process of how this comes together, and it felt good to have somebody to talk and kind of let everything out about all of this. But I'm planning on not recording or publishing this ever.
We all have those conversations. Better off not recorded.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's not like it's not that it's bad, but it's just a lot of work. And right now it's sort of like the last few days before the tour is actually going on the road. And I think then it will start hopefully being a little autopilot-y. So we do need to talk about the weather, though. It's not complainy, right? I mean, the West Coast is weird because we get those weird storms that sort of come out of nowhere. And then so all of a sudden it's like, a foot of snow and you're like, well, wait, I didn't plan for it. But then 2 days later, it's all gone, right? I mean, in some respects. How is it being up there?
It's the same. Yeah, it's kind of like what you're talking about, too. It's the same every time. We're just not used to dealing with it, so it is what it is while it's here, and I don't think anyone's too happy about it. Everyone just kind of slows down and accepts the fact that if there are hills, that you're not going up or down them in a vehicle, and you just try and stay home as much as you can. But yeah. It gets us every time. It's like, this sucks.
It's funny, right? Because in some respects you think by now we'd be prepared for it, but it doesn't happen often enough, right? It's not Colorado or at some places where you sort of, you're buried for months, and so you don't really plan for it, right?
Exactly. We've gotten better here with people clearing their walks and that too, because the homeowners are responsible for clearing the sidewalks. And when I first moved to Vancouver a few years ago, it seemed like no one would clean them up because the city wasn't quite as used to it as it is now, where we're getting snow every winter for the last 4 or 5 years, I think. So at least that much is better. You can kind of get to where you need to go if you're on foot, as opposed to just being like the Wild West out there.
The Wild West. The homeowners being responsible for clearing the snow. That sounds so European. That sounds so German. I mean, that sounds very familiar to me.
I had not experienced it before, because back in Ontario, I mean, we had real winters there, so that the city had the movers and all that to move the snow for us. But yeah, out here it's up to us.
Yeah, the way we've solved that here on the west coast of the U.S. is we just don't have sidewalks at all. Then nobody needs to clear them.
I've noticed that. You want to walk, you're screwed, all right?
Yeah. If you want to walk, you get in your car. That's how far you need to walk. if you can't make it from your front door to the your car door, you're not going anywhere.
Oh, so I guess maybe that's better. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's better if you don't know how to drive in the snow. It's definitely not better. All right. So you are not just Adam from Vancouver. We need to recap. You've been on the podcast a few months ago, and people probably don't remember because people don't remember anything. You are community trail running up in Vancouver and the world. So you started off with your Substack newsletter, but it's sort of turning into something bigger. Do you want it to be still small and Substack newsletter, or are you okay with identifying as turning into something bigger?
Yeah, I'm okay with identifying like that. I feel like it's kind of come naturally too, as you said, with the film festival. I think I saw you post on LinkedIn or something like that about it, and I reached out right away, like, "Hey, I just want to be involved. I don't know what you need." And you're like, "Do you want to host the Vancouver one?" And I was like, "Okay, so that's what I'm doing." So it's kind of been natural in that progression too, and yeah, I've got the newsletter and the podcast always in the back pocket, which is nice, and it brings me joy to chat with other people about trail running and in and around trail running. And I haven't done as much writing as I've maybe would have liked to recently, but I've enjoyed the podcast part of it, and I've kind of let myself off the hook because I've told myself I'm not going to write content just for content's sake. So when I do write stuff, it's because I like it.
Yeah, I hear you there. It's a little bit tricky, right? Once you're sort of in that pressure zone of like, oh, it's been like 48 hours since I published last something. I need to write something. And then you sort of become your own worst boss because then you're exactly the reason why you went independent, that you didn't want to be under that pressure, right?
And then you're just putting out crap too. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like you can tell when someone enjoyed what they did, and as opposed to when someone did what they did because they had to do it.
I like it. That is true. So your podcast is the much better podcast than mine because you are concise. My podcast is like an endless stream of rambling. Like I literally have absolutely no notes for this conversation here today, other than 2:30 talk to Adam. That's like the only note. Do not forget that time. So yours is 15 minutes. Do you try to be exactly under 15? How do you keep it under 15? What can I learn from you?
I mean, once you kind of do it a few times, and having previously worked in television, specifically as a news editor and a sports news editor, video editor rather, I can kind of look at words and know how long it's going to take to say it. So then you can kind of go from there, how long it'll probably take someone to answer it. And then you're just watching the stopwatch. And I think we talked about it last time too. The thing that I try to remember is to not just worry about hammering in my questions, but to let the conversation do what it does too. Because even though it's only 15 minutes, I'd rather hear someone kind of go on about something that's interesting and maybe not get to some other topics, as opposed to just like cutting someone off and having to get on to like, so why did you wear the blue shirt, instead of them telling us about the road there or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that probably works unless you have me on, right? I mean, you're planning to have me on in a couple of weeks, and I am planning to break through the 15-minute barrier again.
He's already called his shot, friends.
All right.
I will do my best to have some sort of guidance to keep us on some kind of track. But
meaning
we'll
you just hit
along.
stop record after 50 minutes. There's going to be a giant clock counting down, and after 50 minutes, mid-sentence, you're just going to hit bong, done. Great.
Right, that's when I put my bobblehead in front of the camera, and you can keep talking, and it'll just go.
Yeah.
Like
Great. Fantastic. So let's talk about the Trail Running Film Festival in Vancouver, though. I am very excited because you are one of the places that is a really big city that hosts a film festival. That's been interesting to see. That I think based on the way we've created the product, if you will, of these DIY shows, because it's reasonably accessible. But I don't think it's just because the product is cheap. Therefore, a lot of small cities are willing to jump on. I think it might lend itself to smaller cities when somebody can say, hey, I know everyone in my running community, right? Wherein Vancouver is so big, you don't know everyone I assume you don't.
Right.
You might,
right? No, I definitely don't. The person that's helping me with my social media, Janine, I call her the mayor of the trails. You run with her; she knows everyone.
Nice.
Yes,
exactly.
So that's definitely a help for sure. But yeah, I've been curious to hear from you as well, and maybe hear about some of the differences, because I think, like you said, it's not cheap, but it's at a price point that you don't need a giant venue to gather wherever you may be in the world. If you have 100 trail runners that want to come together, if you have like 50 trail runners, like you can figure it out to what's important to you. And then in the bigger markets, we have a bigger pool, of course. In Vancouver, very spoiled for that. It's a great trail running city. So much access to so many great things, but it's also there's a lot of noise here. So currently it is March 1st and the Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival is going on, right? So that's for a week. And so yeah, I'm curious to know how it all shakes out. We've had tremendous support up here, not only from sponsors, but from people purchasing tickets early as well. So I know that the event's going to be a smash, a huge success. But I'm curious to hear about everyone else's experience and kind of how sales go, as opposed, or excuse me, how sales will go for everyone kind of cyclically, if it's early or if it's up towards the deadline. And I'm curious if that will change East Coast to West Coast, because I have my guesses.
I'm very curious about that. It too. So let's talk about this piece that I'm curious about, which is I know you as somebody who is a writer and podcaster, not a race director, right? I mean, if I would have asked Gary to host a film festival, he's like, half his life is in front of a microphone on a stage in front of hundreds of people. It would have come natural. How do you see yourself as taking this on? Are you excited for this? Are you excited to sort of jump on stage and saying, because you own the film festival now in Vancouver, right? I mean, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It's super cool. That's what I wrote something just launching everything about the Trail Film Fest and being involved. And I said, usually I speak into my microphone in a closet. How different will it be doing it to 420 people? Like, how it can't be that hard. But at the same time, I've never been super shy or anything like that. It's going to be out of my comfort zone for sure, but I'm not too stressed about it. I think it'll be natural. It's a bunch of trail runners, and I'm sitting there and I get to introduce these awesome films, and we have like these amazing sponsors. Like, I just get to host the party like that. It doesn't sound like a super complicated job. I just need to make sure that I'm speaking clearly and well and representing everyone that needs to be represented as best I can, because it's just such an honor to be up there and representing the Trail Film Fest and all of our awesome sponsors.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it is a really cool opportunity for us as a community to come together sort of in a way where it's casual enough that you don't have to dress up, right? It's not like the Oscars, right? It's not like all of a sudden we have to turn ourselves into something that we are not, right? But at the same time, usually we run trails in small groups by ourselves. Usually we're nervous when we put our bibs on, and so we're a little bit in our own zone. We celebrate the races as a communal event, but they are hard, so you have to kind of fight by yourself. And I think the film festival allows us to sort of come together. And you have a great theater too, so on top of it, I think there are lots of other locations that do it in different environments, which has their own charm. But bringing it sort of into an urban area and into a theater in the evening, it kind of feels sexy, right? I mean, it's something that
Yeah,
trail running is usually not.
totally. We get to like roll in at night, and like maybe you get to go to the bar first for a drink, or maybe you get a drink in the theater. You get to hang out with, like you said, all those people that you kind of had those nervous jokes with while you're bibbing up, or maybe you get to finally run into someone that you ran for hours with during an ultra or whatever it is too. But like, just to change it up and be in that more informal atmosphere. Not that a race is formal, but we're there for our own business, I guess.
Right.
And then yeah, I don't know. The theater will just like we can socialize and we can just be there for trail running. No one has a trail run. We're just there as trail runners, and I think that's pretty cool. Especially, yeah, we're at Commercial and Broadway here. The SkyTrain lets out. Commercial is an awesome street. Like it's going to be great. We've got some draw prizes for some wicked restaurants too. So I'm hoping
I
people
know.
go out afterwards. Like, yeah, it's going to be great.
I know. I'm kind of bummed that you had to move the date from when you initially had it, because I would have
Yes.
totally come up. Um, and I don't know, I would have taken the family up because we love Vancouver and stuff. We totally would have made it. Now it's different story.
Yeah,
Not
midweek is different. It's
midweek,
entirely
and it's
different.
like it's not
Yeah.
spring break anymore down here, and I'm crazy busy, so it's fine what it is. But I would have loved to have come up, but I can only be in so many locations. That's what I've been telling all these hosts who are coming on, that they, the way you described the way you're going to be hosting a film festival. Initially, we used to travel, and that was and that was awesome for the film festival. Obviously limited, we couldn't scale it, but now we are not, and that seems like the sensible choice. But we're hearing all these awesome events that hosts are planning, and I'm like, man, I want to be at all of them. I mean, this sounds cool.
Well, that's the spirit of it, though, right? Like with the license, when you do that, you do want people to be able to put on those great shows, and they have those connections in those cities that you might not have, and that's great that that's the way it's going. The film festival and the local hosts, I think, will both benefit, and hopefully, it's a grand success across how many locations now? 50?
We're close to 50, yeah, but we still have probably 20 out of people who are still trying to figure it out and trying to put the pieces together and stuff. So, yeah, I'm confident that we can make it over 60 easy. So we'll
That's
see.
incredible.
It's insane. So tell me practically a little bit for your sponsors. Does the theater have a place for them to put tables up, or is that tricky, right?
That's pretty tricky, yeah. It's
Yeah.
so there's like a small merch area where we're gonna have any of our sponsors are allowed to kind of like hang out there and talk to people. There's also at the Rio, it's a theater, but it also has a stage for live events as well. So there's some room in front of the stage, and I've told them that they can kind of like hang out there before the event and at least like kind of have a chat with some people. I know Five Peaks, they're going to have tablets there and a 10% discount possibly for people that want to sign up for the race at the event and that kind of thing. So I think there'll be a little bit of room for that, but there won't be like, you walk in, you're not going to see a starting arch or something like that and big signage. We're not going to have a lot of that. It'll be up to me to get the sponsors up on the screen.
Good.
And it's the sponsor. I can't get over how supportive everyone has been, including Matthias with Rock Candy running there, and we can't wait to get that. Yes, amazing. We can't wait to get that going officially, and I'm sure you can't either. But it's just like, yeah, when you get the kind of reaction from people when you're telling them you're putting on an event, and they're so excited for you to do it and want to be involved, it kind of like it adds a bit of pressure, but it adds mostly excitement.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I've been working with local sponsors for the races. There's the initial excitement, and that somebody's picking up what you're putting down, if you will, right? And then you're like, oh, they have expectations now, right? You want to do them well, right? You want to make sure that the brand is represented properly. You want to make sure you're not mispronouncing anything. You want to make sure, and in some respects, at least this has been my experience, when you do these sponsor rates and stuff, we are not at a scale yet that they give you a complete pre-approved legal and marketing signed off script, right? They trust you, right? They might say, hey, we want you
Yes.
to talk about this and not this, but in general, right? And that leaves it to you to write a script, which you're a writer, so you can do that, right? But that is an interesting sort of side challenge that you didn't really think about before, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, this is how this is going to go down, right?
There's so many pieces to it all. As you could, I mean, like putting on the whole festival, I can only imagine because it's probably just scaled up from doing one event, like the things that pop up. But even, like I've never sent an invoice, so
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
something that,
yeah.
I mean, like,
No,
oh, now
exactly.
I have to build one of these. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
absolutely. There is a certain, yeah, there's a certain whole meta kind of conversation of how to put an event on like that and what the different pieces are. Ticket sales for you go through the theater, right?
yes,
So that's then at least that part is taken care of, right?
yes,
So that's sort of a nice one, even though that then also creates a little bit of a challenge because you don't really have any visibility on how ticket sales are going, right?
yeah. You have to just send an email. So how many have we sold?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then,
yeah, yeah. Exactly, right? And it's like, how thirsty do you want to appear if you email them
exactly.
3 times a week, right? Like, have we hit the minimum yet? Have we hit the minimum yet?
Right. Johnny said he was buying a ticket. Did Johnny come buy a ticket yet?
Oh my gosh. I think you'd be a one-time host. They wouldn't invite you back if you would email them that. That is hilarious. So that's been an aspect that again, as somebody who loves doing that kind of stuff, I'm super excited to see how the hosts who've approached me in wanting to host, how many connections they've had in their community in order to pull in these sponsors. And it's not a corporatization of the event because these sponsors are local race directors and local restaurants, right? There is a certain, I hate the word synergy, but there is something where you bring people together, and if the community celebrates itself and the businesses in the community recognize that, that creates a really good atmosphere, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like stakeholders, right? Like
Yeah.
everyone. Um, it would be a little different if you rolled in and it was like three realtors and maybe like an insurance company or something like that. Not that those things aren't important and those people aren't contributing to their communities as well, but it just starts to feel more like like the corporatized, just stick it on there and like, here we go, blah, blah, blah. Whereas when you get those local, we're all trail runners, that's what we're here for. So when you have the trail running shops and the trail running races, some that you do know, some maybe that you don't know, and you get to learn about, like that's exciting and that's fun, and coaching services, and those are all things that when you're in the trail running community, you're trying to find anyway. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a natural extension. Like you said, it is, I hate
I
the
mean,
term,
yeah,
but it is synergist.
it's an ad that aligns itself, right? It's like in the olden days when you had a magazine and you open it up and the ads in the magazine were actually of products that you anyway would like and use, right? Then you don't mind the ads, right? And it sort of works together.
Yeah, exactly. It's what the athletic would love you to think that they're trying to do now with their paid.
Oh,
Yeah, anyway, we
oh, I
won't get into
see.
that, but
Yeah,
yeah.
no. Oh, it's interesting. I'm not really paying attention to it from that level, but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I get it. So at the Rio Independent Theater in it's a downtown. It's not really downtown. What
No, we're East Van, East Van.
East Van? Perfect. I mean, do you have a photographer?
Not yet. So that's
Okay.
something I've got to look into as well. I don't. Yeah, not yet.
Okay. No, no worries. I was curious because I really hope to capture some photos that we can use to promote the rest of the tour and we can use in following years too. And so just kind of showing the film festival in action, right? I think it will be super, super fun.
I can pretty well guarantee you we'll have some nice photos. I just don't know the process to getting those yet. But I'm certain it won't be an issue. I just need to figure out who I'm going to bug.
There we go. What else do we need to talk about? Do you have anything else planned in terms of?
We got to nail down a guest for our intermission still. I've been in touch with a group here that would like to learn some more about, but I don't want to put too much pressure on them because they are stretched very thin as it is, and I should start maybe contemplating some backups as well. But there's a great community of people here. We will have someone exciting to kind of listen to. I need to chat with the theater as well because I'm kind of hoping to record it and maybe do like a live episode recording there. But if we can't do that, then we'll just we'll have a great conversation that will lead into the second half of the films, and we're going to give away a bunch of stuff during the first part and the second part after intermission. Yeah, we've got some great restaurants and some great races with some entries that they want to do.
So how did the restaurants come together? I mean, that's like amazing. Did you like go door to door, or how did you get that lined up?
So Sheena and I live just off of the Drive, Commercial Drive. It's referred to as the Drive here in Vancouver. It's a super fun stretch. If you're ever visiting in town, please come check it out. We have all these cool independent restaurants and stores, and it's not too far from downtown. It takes you maybe 10 minutes on the SkyTrain tops. And it's got this great vibe, tons of fun little places. And Sheen and I walk up and down there all the time. And one of the restaurants that we have, Harbor Oyster Bar, it's our local haunt. We go in there, they know our names, they put our drinks on the bar, and they're just wonderful people. They have happy hour from 11 to 5 every day, so we go for oysters and beer after work or whatever. And yeah, we've been going there for quite some time. They're lovely, and when I had talked to them about hosting the Trail Film Festival, they were so eager to get involved in however they could. And their sister restaurant is Social, which is also one that we will go to because it has an amazing rooftop patio, and because it's the same owners, they're lovely people. So we don't have any problems supporting them. And when I asked for some support, they were very quick to give us a sponsorship, which was very, very kind and awesome. And no joke either. It's $100 at each spot, man.
I know. No, I mean, this is like the real deal. I totally love that. You know, I've been in Vancouver now a few times, and I think I don't think I've ever been on Commercial Drive. You think, you know, because we sort of hit into downtown and then we just Granville Island, Stanley Park, Gastown type, that typical like tourist loop, right?
Totally.
Well,
next time you're in town, you'll know me too. So there's no way that you won't be able to go to the Drive.
Absolutely, no. Next time we'll definitely come and visit. This is amazing. Yeah, it is really cool, and that speaks to you being the perfect host for Vancouver because you're truly embedded into the community that you're hosting. I don't want people to sort of be helicoptering themselves in, right? And the fact that you found a theater close to where you live, and it's great. It's
such a good match.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's amazing. Well, I really hope that folks in Vancouver. We've been making enough noise now, right? I mean, they have really no excuse not to get a ticket and come and see you. And then I'm like super excited because that could be like, that can and will and should become like an annual thing, right? I mean, this can be like your big once a year spring thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of a way to, you know, we've had the season just kind of launch here, so this is like the perfect like time of year to get everyone together and excited as the weather changes. And the theater has been really nice to deal with since we've got all set up as well, and I'm doing my best to get into their good books so we can choose an even better date next year, or at least have more choice of dates next year. So I'm hopeful that this relationship is just in its infancy.
I really hope so too, because you were early on, and I think you booked the theater just outright. And there were a couple locations, and I've been telling hosts this. There've been a couple locations where an interested host has reached out to a theater. The theater was like, okay, here's the rental price, take it or leave it type deal, right? And then the host was like, oh, wait, that's too much for me. And then the theater was like, oh, that's the programming? We actually kind of want that. And then the theater contacted us
Mm,
directly, right? And we were like, how about we work together, right?
right.
Like they weren't like undercutting the person asking, right? Yeah, but the
Okay, I
person,
thought there was some
no, no,
sneaky going
no.
on.
They were just like, hey, somebody has asked and they decided they're not going to do it, but we heard about the programming. We are interested, right? And so I think that there have been some scenarios where theaters have been more amicable in the kind of rental fees, right?
Right.
And because they're like, this programming is really exciting for us. I mean, if you can fill the theater midweek in March or April, then they will love you, right?
Everybody wins.
Because that doesn't happen for an independent theater unless they book a blockbuster release for that week, right? And they can't do that every week. So I hope that this relationship can continue to grow for us as a festival in general, but also for you individually, right? Because I think everyone wins then, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like there seems to be a lot of pressure in trail running to keep evolving right now, and I'm not going to be like the old man yelling at the clouds and saying it's good where it is, but this just seems like a natural way to be together, to take in different media, and not worry about growth, but just worry about the sport as it is. I don't. Maybe I'm my tangent's not going to land here, but I just feel like it's a grassroots kind of event, and it shows, the films that have been selected show such a wide swath of what we are, and it just gets down to the nuts and bolts of it. There's no worrying about what it's going to mean for sales or anything like that. It's just the pure sport for the sport of it.
I think I think there is some truth to that in the sense that, especially when you hear people talking about these meta conversations about what this sport holds and who are sort of the influencers in the sport, right? The Trail Running Film Festival is an antidote to that in some respects because we are able to tell stories, and we are purposely selecting stories that are not the ones that are just pushed by sponsors. I think this is
Mm-hmm.
where we could fall down if we next year start talking to sponsors earlier and the stipulations is, well, we'll sponsor, but then we'll have a film in the film festival, right? And then before you know it, you're watching 6 films and they're all sponsored by the big brands, and then it becomes a string of infomercials with
Yeah, it's like
pro
Killian and
runners,
Courtney or
right?
whatever, like, which is fine, but
It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But we got to be really careful threading this needle because Killian and Courtney get their work out no matter what. They get their stories told no matter what. There's enough platforms for them already. So there's no real need in us showing them. And while we would be honored to tell their story, a portion of their story, have them on screen, if that means elbowing somebody else or pushing somebody else out, we got to be really careful. We as the ones selecting these films got to be careful that we always make sure that we're not going to be starstruck and saying, "Ooh, look at this!" Right here, just the biggest voices, therefore we select these. But we want diversity, we want representation, we want unique stories that are uniquely in position to not be the stuff that the brands are sponsoring, right?
yeah, exactly. It's like lining up at the start line of whatever race. There could be the pros there, and there is every level, but the sport exists not solely because of the people that are going to finish on the podium, but it's
Mhm.
there just as much for the people that are going to be on the DFL podium or right in between. So the film festival, I think you're right. And you've done it this year, and make sure, to continue to do that is to tell the stories of everybody else, and keep pushing the diversity and inclusion aspect of it all too, because that's so important for our sport. That's the growth that I want to see. I don't give a shit if, pardon my language, if insert brand A is making more for their shareholders. I want this sport to be something that everyone can go out and enjoy, and if they can't, we can kind of get to the root of why they can't, if that's important to them.
I agree, and I think for us being able to sort of push that vision, I think gives us sort of a unique place, especially if we are able to share it in a way with all of these incredible hosts like you who are buying into this, right? Who are willing to carry the torch for us, because we've clearly come to this point that this is way bigger than a team could organize themselves if we would be touring, right? I mean, we would have to tour for like 6 months in order to get as many dates in.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would be expensive logistics, travel and stuff, right? And so to be able to work with folks, and I don't know if we talked about this, and this is the other part that I'm fascinated, right? You and I, you said you're a writer, you're a podcaster. I see myself sort of a little bit in the same space. I'm not even a filmmaker myself, right? And I sometimes feel like I would much rather have somebody on stage telling the story directly that would feel more real and raw. But I realized that there are a lot of people's stories that wouldn't be told if we would only do live content, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we would do a podcast festival and travel around the country and do live shows, right? That would be cool. But then it would be literally only white men because they like talking on podcasts on stage. Right? I mean, there are certain stories that wouldn't be told because people don't want to be on stage. Like I just talked this morning with a filmmaker who has a film in this year's film festival, and I said she would love to go and visit one of the locations, and I said, oh yeah, I'll put you in touch with with our host there. I'm sure she would love to interview on stage. And she's like, no, I have major stage fright. I would love to be there. I would love to experience people seeing my film, but I do not put me on stage. I'm like, hey, you absolutely right. And I think for these people who have awesome stories to tell, we shouldn't just we need to celebrate film, because film is able to tell these stories when this comfort of public speaking sort of reaches an end.
It's an easy medium to cover and show many people, obviously. And then on the same vein too, like, and kind of going back as well, but to the inclusivity and diversity and that sort of thing too. It's great. The film festival has an opportunity to be the ones to show people on screen that are white or are not white. And as you joked already too, like, we're both white guys, we get to see ourselves as inspiration in anywhere in the world we want. So to be able to take the Trail Running Film Festival and show people of different cultures themselves on screen is so awesome, and I am so excited to be part of that, and hopefully to be able to grow that and have it not be something that needs to be pointed out, but something that just happens, and it has to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's something that I was very impressed and excited and really relieved that when we got the submissions in, there was such a large level of diversity to choose from. Like, I didn't have to apply affirmative action. That I was, okay, we have 95% white men films. We have to select the 5% of non-white, even though the films might not be that great, right? We could just go and select the best films, and as it happens, they showed a level of diversity as it was, right? And I'm excited for that, and I'm super excited for sort of having this film turn out so much bigger than anything we've ever done before, because by doing so, we'll be able to raise money for our filmmaker grant, which then in turn enables us to support filmmakers and create more of these kind of stories, right? Which is obviously super, super exciting. It becomes sort of then an engine that feeds itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe somewhere along the line we get to debut a film because it was made directly from the funds from the film festival or something like that. That would be so cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just neat to be included in this and be a part of it and know um, the creators from across the trail running world will be able to apply and get involved. And that's what this shit should be about.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, this seems to be like turning into a short show here. What are we doing? I need to ramble a little bit more. Well, let's talk about this. What are your racing plans for the year? Let's talk about you, the runner, and not just the host.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm planning on coming down to participate in one of your events there. I've never run outside of Canada, so I'm excited to do that. And the
You have to
Beast
run
of
on
Big.
the other side of the trail.
Sorry. But honestly, the Beast of Big Creek just sounds like right in my wheelhouse, man. I love that you just go up and then you come right back down. Like however long it is, that doesn't matter. There's no flats. That is in my wheelhouse entirely. I'm so excited for that event. I think was it 16 miles?
It's what are we doing? 14. It's
14.
so it's 7 up and 7 down, straight
Yeah.
5,200 feet of vert. You have to translate that into meters. I can help you there, but um but yeah,
16.
the exciting part really, I mean, coastal mountains, it's a reasonable similar environment that you're familiar with, right? But we have lots of steep hills, but because you start at sea level, there are not many, even after like 4,000 feet of climbing, where you actually pop out above the trees
Right.
and are truly going to a summit, right? And what is so exciting about Mount Eleanor is that we'll be able to really have the turnaround at the summit. And so a good mile and a half is completely above tree level. So it will feel like sky running in many ways, right? And
That's
I
so
think
cool.
that's what's really, I'm desperately trying to get somebody who can do drone photography so we can get some aerial shots, which would be mwah.
No kidding. No kidding.
So you're coming down for Beast. I'm excited for that. What else you got on your plate?
And then the only other thing I got right now is in September, I'm heading back to Vancouver Island for the Finlayson Arm. I'm going to run a 50K there. Again, I've run that once previously. It's probably my favorite event that I've actually done as far as the ultras go, which I've not done a ton of. But it's just super grassroots, and it feels like a celebration of trail running the entire time. It's really easy for your volunteer and your crews to get around from aid station to aid station, so you will see mostly the same people throughout the day, not only the runners but the people waiting at the aid stations. And as you've gathered, I'm kind of a chatty guy, so especially when I'm out there running, I'll talk anyone's ear off. So I start recognizing them pretty quick, and they'll talk my ear off too. And I just had so much fun. And the course itself will kick your butt. Like I don't think you ever end up going above about 500 meters, so 1,500 feet maybe.
Okay.
But you're just going up and down the entire time, and you do touch sea level at one point. So the entire race ends up with 9,000 feet like 3,000 meters.
Yeah,
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 so
yeah.
you're like you just literally go
Yeah.
up and down, but it's beautiful. Our Arbutus trees are everywhere, and every time you go up, it's clear. So it's just this gorgeous look down Finlayson Arm. And then finally, when you get back to the finish line, they have great sponsors. They're really lucky with their local support as well. So the finish line barbecue is open to everyone. Like your friends and family that come in and support you, they can get a burger and a beer as well, and you all just get to hang out and cheer everyone that comes in. Like it's a really fun time. So I'm looking forward to that one as well. And the race director there, Mike LaBelle, he's a I should be super Canadian. He's a real beauty. Um, you got to go run one of his events if you're up here on Vancouver Island, and Finlayson Arm is definitely a great one. He's an awesome person, and he takes care of his crew and he takes care of his runners, and it's just a wonderful weekend to be involved in. They run a 100K race and a 28K race, and if you do both of those, it's called the double.
Hmm, hmm.
But my favorite thing about the 100K, and it's not completely unique, but it's a little uncommon, is that they start Friday night at 5 o'clock. So the runners get to do into the evening, which is pretty cool.
I love that. I think for 100K, that is really cool because you're still fresh. So you're fresh into the night, right? And then it's daytime and you're just grinding yourself to the finish, right? So what's
Absolutely.
the vert on the 100K?
Shoot, I'd have to open up the course outline because they've just changed it this year. So it used to just be straight up two loops. But
Mm,
Mike has been battling for years, not battling, but he's been working with the local BC parks and that kind of thing on permits. As you know, they can be a bit of a pain for people, but he's gotten to the point now where he kind of finally got to open up this course. So now it's entirely different. I don't think it's actually as much vert as the two loops would be, but
mhm,
he's
mhm.
just so excited that he's been able to create one massive loop
Oh, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
through some wonderfully runnable trail.
And that's on Vancouver Island, so you need to take a ferry over, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
I've heard of this race that many times before. It is definitely sort of a mainstay event that makes its name beyond, the local crowd. So,
yes, and he's been selling out the last couple of years because that wasn't always the way, but I believe they sold out last year, and it looks like they're going to sell out this year as well.
nice, nice, very fun.
Yeah, totally. It's super easy to support. If you're ever up that way and looking for a reason to go, like I said, Mike is awesome, and that event in particular is just dynamite. It's Victoria, BC would be the
Okay, okay, yeah.
closest major city, yeah, which is the capital of BC. So if you're up visiting, it's not a bad spot to be. It's a beautiful area on the island, and yeah, you won't regret running.
I was up in Victoria, so this is my story. My wife and I, first 2 years married here in the US, we didn't have a car. Living in Seattle, we didn't need a car, right? Then after like, I don't know, 2 years or so, we got a car. And I don't know if our first trip was up across the border or if it was our second. Our first trip might have been around the peninsula. But when we had some time when, we worked opposite schedules, so it was hard to find time off. So as a European, vacation meant you have to cross an international border, right? I mean, you
Okay.
can't just like go, 6 hours east and end up in the same state or something, right? Or in a different state. You have to actually go to a different country. Very, very important for me. So we went up and we did a trip where we Victoria first and then Vancouver. And we went into Victoria and it was really miserable weather and we had no idea what to do in Victoria. We knew sort of the obvious things, but we didn't want to do the obvious thing. So we didn't go to the wax museum and we didn't have tea. But I remember that we walked down some cobblestone street and we ended up eating at an Elephant and Castle. And I'm like embarrassed to even say that. Why did we end up at a chain restaurant of all things, right? But it was sort of, we go to Canada and we can speak the language, so we can figure things out, but we had no preparation done. Like I didn't even know about poutine back then, which is embarrassing because I love poutine. And I know that's very stereotype, but it's like, I remember. And so anyway, we stayed in Victoria and it was sort of ferry ride was beautiful. It was totally worth it from that point of view. But Victoria was sort of like, what are we doing here? This is kind of weird. And then we went over to Vancouver and we stayed a couple days in Vancouver and our minds were blown. It was like, this is the coolest place ever. Like, we've been in Cape Town, and Cape Town is one of the most gorgeous cities in the world. And we came to Vancouver and we were like, this is going to be a tough contender here. This might give Cape Town a run for its money. No, we totally fell in love. And we were like, we should have skipped Victoria. We should have just only done Vancouver. But at least I can say I was in Victoria. And I think I would have been better prepared, then I would have probably had a better time in Victoria. I'm not trying to badmouth Victoria. I'm saying I wasn't very well prepared, and I don't know. Was it before the internet? It felt like it was before the internet. Nowadays you can just scroll through Instagram and you get 50, 100 ideas of what to do in a place when you go, right? But back then, that's how old we are. Back then you needed to like really prepare if you wanted to go to a place and do stuff.
Yeah, having the choice between the two cities, I think you're guaranteed to have more fun in Vancouver just because there's more choice. But it's also a little bit more higher pace of life, if you will. The island can be quite sleepy and insular, and if you're someone from the outside, maybe it's not so not welcoming, but people might not just be willing to give you the information on where you should go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm a man. I would never ask for directions, right? Well, that wasn't the issue. Anyway, it was incredible to chat with you again. Give us one more time the rundown. The Rio is going to host the Trail Running Film Festival, East Vancouver on Commercial Drive?
Commercial Drive. Commercial and Broadway, baby.
Commercial and Broadway. That sounds like it's right in the heart of it all. What's the date?
Tuesday, April 18th. The doors are at 6. The show starts at 7, and tickets are available on the Rio's website. You can get them through the Trail Film Fest website, obviously, as well. It's not hard to get tickets. It's not hard to spend your money. We will take it.
Yes, that's right. Okay, if you are anywhere in British Columbia, anywhere in Western Canada, I don't know, I have to be careful. There are a couple locations that are coming on. I don't want to like step on your fellow Canadian host's feet, but if you are anywhere north of Bellingham, you definitely north of Bellingham and south of Anchorage or something like that. I don't know. Then you have to travel to the Rio to go and see Adam and the Trail Running Film Festival. Thank you so much for your time coming on the show. Thank you for your support as always. Thank you for being a good friend. Hopefully we'll at some point be doing this beyond Zoom and we can actually, I don't know, run some miles together. So I need you to show me Stanley Park. I've not run in Stanley Park before.
Well, we could do that. We could do anything you want, Matthias. You're in town. We will hit some trails, man.
Exactly. I've also not run the grouse grind, which I'm told is something. Have you done the grouse grind before? Have you talked about this before?
Grind. I don't know if we have talked about it. Yeah, I've done it many times.
Do you have like one of those like chip things where?
No, I'm too cheap for that, Matthias.
Oh, is that expensive?
I don't remember how much it costs. I don't think it's that expensive. I'm just far too cheap for that.
Okay. I think it's such an amazing idea. I love that you can sort of like record yourself. I think it's fantastic.
It's fun when you go in and you can buy your tickets and stuff too. You see everyone's runs from the day. You see who's done the most runs day, that week, whatever, right? Like it's totally fun. When I was doing the Squamish 50/50 training, because the BCMC is the other trail that goes with the grouse grind. Mm-hmm. So people will do the BCMC to not be on the as busy grouse grind.
Yep.
But you can also do it as loops. So when I was training for Squamish 50/50, I would go up and down like twice the grind and down, and then you get your like 2,000 to 2,500 meters 7,500 feet, I guess.
Mhm.
And it's nice and easy. And at the top, you get the awesome chalet for your breaks. So you can get like an actual bagel or whatever, right? And it's perfect for that.
I mean, that sounds like so European. It's amazing. And if you pay, you get the ticket down, right? I mean, you can if you
Yes.
want to. I mean, downhill running is fun, so I don't know why you would want to take the gondola down. But I mean, gondolas are great too. So I mean, who wouldn't want to ride a
Yes.
gondola?
Absolutely. And I used to just take the gondola down because I enjoyed it. It was fun. But now, going back to the cheapness, it's up to $15 for the download now. So my run, I just run down.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would probably run too, but I mean, the fact that it exists as a thing is what I love so
Yes.
much, right?
Yes, it's so
really
cool.
Yeah.
Totally. And you can get, not just the grind. Like I said, there's so many trails that you end up there that I love the top of Grouse because it's the chalet that you can tag up at before you head back to wherever you need to. And that, like you said, it's just so cool. You're up at the top of this mountain and there's the restaurant. If you want to stop for like a beer and a burger, you could do that too. Usually, like I said, I like the bagel with the cream cheese or whatever and a shot of espresso. That's my go-to.
Well, and it's so close to town that, I mean, the view that you have from up there is absolutely incredible, right? Not just being able to see far, but seeing Vancouver right by the water. I mean, it's absolutely world-class view. You can't,
Oh
you
yeah,
can't really
clear
beat
day.
that.
You can see Mount Baker too. Like, oh,
Uh,
it's so good.
can you? I'm due for a vacation. Can you tell? It's time. It's time. It's time. All right. Adam, thank you so much. We'll link everything, and that is Singletrack.